It's Ireland-England from the weekend through the prism of Billy Vunipola. Here he is talking to the press after the game. Will O'Callaghan was in the middle of the scrum. Have a look.
To come to such a fortress where England have struggled in the past and win by a decent margin, what can that mean moving forward?
You know, in the week about praise making you weak, which is why I keep saying it's very, very important that we stay grounded. I know it's the first win, first game. So hopefully, you know, we can put out a great performance against France. One, we can hold our heads up high. You know, it'd be great occasions to be back at Twickenham. You know, that's probably my best memories missing out on that is playing at Twickenham in front of a home crowd.
Billy, just in terms of the performance, was it a very conscious decision to go and press them as high up the pitch as you did because it directly resulted in a couple of tries?
I think you saw in the autumn, you know, it's not just pressing from the outside, but everyone coming together. And I thought we did that amazingly well today. You know, we were really together there as a unit, not just forwards, but backs and forwards. And we put them under a lot of pressure. You know, Ireland tend not to chase a lot of games, so I guess we asked them questions that maybe they haven't been asked before, and that's kind of where we got our successes from.
It's a great point. We're not very good at coming back from behind. So obviously Sexton scores the drop goal in France and everyone goes, oh, we came from behind that game, but like we were behind for about a wet week or a wet minute. We haven't been behind at half time and beaten good opposition in a very long time. Somebody was tweeting about it at the weekend. I think it was 18 or 19 games, but the last time we did it was against Italy in 2011 was the last time we came from behind at half time and won a game. It's like, okay, well, can we find somebody really good? So we've actually come from behind and beaten in a big game, and I don't remember that. So, I mean, you know, it seems fairly easy, but get a lead on Ireland and it's not quite game over, but it's pretty close to it.
Seems that way. It's also quite demoralising watching, isn't it, when we're getting battered like that? It's fantastic when it's going well and when the wheels are turning and you're like, there is nothing that this opposition can do to stop us, even though they know what's going to happen. But when the wheels come off a little bit and the tables have turned and suddenly it's them knocking at our door consistently, and it's like the consistency that we bring to our game is therefore ineffectual because you need to come up with something different, and that something different sometimes is absent when it comes to watching a Joe Schmidt team that's struggling in a game. Now the thing is, we haven't witnessed this in a long time, so it is kind of this unusual feeling of helplessness of watching the Irish rugby team. There's a couple of easy options here, and the one that has been touted over the last couple of days has been the boot of Johnny Sexton. Why wasn't that utilised a little bit more in behind the English line? And there has to be some sort of realistic explanation for that, as to maybe the belief that they had in actually carrying the ball out of their own 22 or in Conor Murray's box-kicking game. But we certainly saw both of those options were failing miserably.
Well, listening to Ronan O'Gara talk last night, he was talking about how kickers just need a little bit of front foot, a little bit of momentum, anything, so that you can actually feel like, you know, you've got a tiny bit of space, and that wasn't ever happening. So you're going backwards kicking, it's not going to be particularly effective. And that primarily is the fact that our pack got destroyed. And it wasn't close. It wasn't, you know, they just beat our pack. They absolutely annihilated all of our pack. Did anybody in the pack come out of that with their reputation properly enhanced?
Enhanced? Oh, definitely not.
Did anybody fully intact?
Josh Van der Fleer made a lot of tackles.
Yeah, I mean, I would have expected more from him.
CJ Stander played with a broken face. Is that a reputation enhanced?
On the CJ Stander playing with a broken face, how did the medical staff stand over the fact? So his brother-in-law tweeted the fact that he played 60-odd minutes with a broken face, right? So let's assume that the brother-in-law is accurate and that's information that's come directly from CJ Stander, because he's standing there in a photograph. What's the point in leaving CJ Stander on with a broken face? Are they saying they didn't know? That this only emerged after half-time? They put him back out in the second half with a broken face, right?
Yeah, and you could see his face was falling off.
There's the tweet. Not the result we wanted, but an incredible experience nonetheless. I'm proud of CJ Stander playing 62 minutes with 2 fractures in his cheek and eye socket.
Like, you can see he's like growing a second face there almost. It's so broken.
How is that the right thing for CJ?
Yeah, it doesn't.
How is it the right thing for the team? Like, where's the duty of care? At what point do you stand? Because we have to trust that rugby is looking after its players. Right, they're the ones stepping in and saying, no, you've got to come off. We've created this bunch of rules to make sure that no matter what, because we know you want to play. We know adrenaline is going to make you feel like actually I'm okay, I'm much better than I am, and then the adrenaline wears off and you're like, ooh, I've got 2 breaks on my face. I don't know. That didn't make any sense. Like, get Sean O'Brien on. If he's that injured, which he was, for his sake, for the team's sake, get him off, no?
Yeah, and the change happened eventually anyway, so what did you gain by actually leaving him on? The answer is not a lot.
But the potential to have...
Do yourself worse, of course, that's the bigger
much
question.
more serious damage. Like, because I mean, I could only imagine the level of pain that you're feeling every time somebody touches your face, and what if they touch your face again?
Or imagine a tackle.
Yeah.
Just the impact of that.
One of those, or imagine Manu Tuilagi headbutts you. Oh, I mean, that's fine, apparently. Apparently that's in the rules as well. No siding for Manu Tuilagi is the other stuff that came through this morning. So, I don't know. That all doesn't seem to make that much sense. Here's what's coming up for you. Sports pages around about 8 o'clock. We're going to do Liverpool's wobble at 10 past 8. Talking GAA roundup around about 25 past 8. Darren's going to join us at 8:35. And then the Six Nations will go back to it at around about 8:45 this morning. But if there's anything else you'd like to get off your chest for us, or who you think should be selected for Ireland, given the amount of injuries that have now been reported after last Saturday, it could be a completely changed team, a completely changed midfield, a completely changed back three. What do? Are you picking Henshaw fullback again?
Well, I think you kind of have to. Are you stuck with it? Are you stuck with the idea that if this experiment is going to fail, at least be 100% sure it's a failing experiment?
Is that like...
Or is that a defeatist attitude?
Does that make sense? What about like trying to work on it, you know, in dribs and drabs, as opposed to saying, oh, we could completely tank now. We could actually completely ruin this forever, or we could just do a bit of it sometimes, like, you know, or we could do something else. I don't know. The logic that you have to repeat the mistake if it was a mistake to make sure that you made the mistake properly, isn't that logical to me?
No, but there is... Okay.
You're giving him another chance to succeed. Is that the...
Well, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough.
But there was a couple of carries in the first half where you're like, I like this. But at the same time, when he was making those carries, it's like, why can't he do this from a midfield position? It was almost as if midfielder Robbie Henshaw was coming out to play rather than fullback Robbie Henshaw. And then when fullback Robbie Henshaw was asked to play, mostly against a run of play, then things started to get a little bit ugly. So I think when you talk about playing on the back foot and you talk about Johnny Sexton not having the capabilities of actually changing a game when Ireland are on the back foot, I think the same has to go for the full back. Like, what would Rob Kearney have done on Saturday? Would he have made a bit of a difference? Yes, of course he would.
Absolutely.
Like, of course he would.
Two tries probably. The one where he shanks the left foot.
I think it's hard. Would he have been there to stop the Stockdale spill?
I think so. Yeah. I think
Robbie Henshaw was miles away from that. He wasn't even close.
And I think that his left foot clearance kick doesn't get shanked into play, and
kick was
you know, but like the rest of the team bears far more responsibility for the defeat than Robbie Henshaw does. But that didn't work, and like this kind of we have to go with it again because otherwise you're going to ruin Robbie Henshaw as a fullback forever. You're not. Like maybe you do it in the Italy game and you go, well, what would it look like with front football? And then that's where the confidence comes from. Say it goes tits up this time, right? How do you ever recover from that? And what's the point of that?
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. I just feel that there was such a systems failure all around the pitch last week that we didn't get an accurate representation of Robbie Henshaw at 15 for Ireland.
That's a fair point.
That's kind of my view on it. Like, the question is if Rob Kearney is 100% fit and good to go, and Ireland desperately now need to win, why wouldn't you start him? And there is no answer to that question that is correct, because you start your best players in your best position this weekend. This idea that we had beforehand of experimentation and we're trying out different things before the World Cup, is that now out the window as well?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think you've got to, well...
But this weekend,
you're going to be forced... Well, so your second row is going to be significantly changed. It looks like Deb Toner's gone and...
Billy Holland's going to be brought into the squad.
Your back row is going to be different. Obviously, CJ Sanders gone, so what happens there? Do you look to change the balance of the makeup of that? I don't know. Is anybody undroppable at this point? Tyke Furlong's undroppable. After that, anybody else?
Yeah, Tyke Furlong's. When you talk about people who kept their reputations intact, from the one thing that wasn't actually mentioned yesterday, Alan Quinlan was going on about the referee yesterday, was if we talk about the other prop in the front row in terms of Cian Healy, have we spoken about that try at all that Ireland scored? There was a
suggestion there was a hand underneath it.
Yeah, I just don't understand the misery that we're showing, or the disdain with which we're giving Jerome Garces at the moment. Because
there's definitely a hand underneath it.
it's definitely seemed to me, and also when you go to a sideline camera of it, granted, Cian Healy's arm is of it, the ball is like up here. It's like that ball isn't that big that it's actually up near your face, and it's also touching the grass. So anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but he just kind of reminded me of it when you started talking about the front row there. I think Tadhg Furlong, as you say, is undroppable. Of course he is. Rory Best is obviously droppable at this point. The question is there a bit of a drop off between him and Sean Cronin when it comes to the set piece? Of course there is. When it comes to anybody in the second row, James Ryan still has the aura of undroppability at the moment. There's no question about that. Also helped hugely by the fact that we've now got an injury crisis in the second row. The back row is probably up for grabs at the moment, but Peter O'Mahony's going to start. There's no question about that, and I think there's Van der Fleer.
Some people asking questions about Peter O'Mahony, whether or not, if Toner's out, there's no way that O'Mahony's droppable. Because
that's what I mean.
I'm delighted to say Keith Wood is with us this morning. Keith, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. We're licking our wounds here as Irish rugby supporters and wondering what the hell happened there. And a lot of people are making the case that rugby's a fight, and if you lose the fight, the game's over.
I think that's a fairly perspicacious comment. I'd say about as close as it gets, really. I didn't think we got to the pitch of the game, and England started really, really well. They had the most basic and efficient game plan, which was maybe one or two movements of the ball, very little subtlety at all, but done very quickly and with a high level of aggression. And we almost seemed surprised by that. And even from the first line out with some of our players still running back, they used their pace, they used the opportunity to try and turn our players really, really well. And it was very hard to watch. It was very, very uncomfortable in the stadium. The stadium was quiet and never got going at all. You could have sworn that you were in Twickenham, not the Aviva. With the sort of atmosphere that was there, and it felt as if it infected everybody.
Yeah, what can you do if you're Ireland in that situation? You're 15, 20 minutes into the game. What should they have done differently to try and arrest the pattern?
Well, it's hard when the English defence was suffocating an awful lot of what we were trying to do, and we tried to do an awful lot behind the game line. So it was either short pop balls or plays that had subtlety and runners going here, there, everywhere. But the England defence just seemed to pick off those players. At different stages, you just need to change the momentum. So we tried to change it by kicking box kicks, which we've used a very good effect over the last number of years. I felt we overdid it this time around. But actually England played in the manner in which we would have liked to have played, which is a little dink over the top to find grass, find a place where there isn't a player, try and get them to turn, put them under pressure, put the onus on them. I would have said England, with the exception of the chip over the top try that they had at the end, did very little of great skill. You know, they did simple skill and did it really, really well for most of the game. But for the most part, they didn't really put themselves under huge pressure, with the exception of that chip over the top for the try, which was really fast running from very deep. Flat passes straight across the line, guys running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and totally caught us off guard. But other than that, they just put us under pressure by dinking the ball in behind us, by winning the collisions, by putting all our thought processes under pressure. And ultimately it felt like we had players who haven't played for a while, and we talked about this last week, and I'm not saying we weren't worried about it, because we thought these are guys that can do it. But when you look down through the litany of the players, a lot of them hadn't played a huge amount of high-level rugby, and we just seemed to be that tiniest little bit off. And like people would say, it's a huge amount off, and we were awful. Because England gave us nothing in the whole game, just being that little bit off proved pretty poor. But we need to be far smarter and sharper in attack, because we didn't look like we were going to break them down at any stage.
Yeah, that I guess is the most worrying thing. You can fix some of the smaller bits, and certainly you would hope that the players get better with a bit more game time under their belts. But the inability, it seemed, to respond to what the new challenge, and it wasn't even that new or unexpected from England, that's the bit that's most worrying. That last bit that you just said there was, we didn't look particularly creative. We didn't look like we had an answer to what was a fairly straightforward game plan from England.
It was, but it was one that whether that's going to be fully sustainable. I mean, when I would compare that to being what Ireland have done in the past, it is one that often pays a big toll for us defensively. That we tend to lose players from it because it is entirely to do with pressure and diminishing all risk. That's a tough game to play for a long period of time. And I think this is something that we need to make certain we can deal with in the future, because if teams do this against us and are as good as England were, and I've talked to a couple of people that said they didn't think England were great. England were so efficient. So they didn't try a huge amount. It's like going for a dive in the diving board. They went for the maximum score with the lowest level of risk that they possibly could. So it doesn't mean they're going to get the best score, but it's going to put them into a level of perfection. So they nearly did that on Saturday. So we need to be able to shake that up a little bit. I felt we became a bit lateral. When Johnny takes the ball to the line, he does get smashed. But we are a better attacking team when that happens. Now, not all the time, because a lot of the play that has stood us in very good stead for the last couple of years has revolved around the ball being pulled back from a forward to Johnny running around and him looking at the myriad options that he has at his disposal then. Those options were taken away at the weekend because of the line speed, because of the slowdown just at the tackle from the English, which they weren't rushing in and falling off any tackles. They were rushing up, slowing, and making the tackle and stopping the play. So we just need that variation, and I think we do have it, but I just don't think we had it on Saturday.
Yeah, outside of the injured, Keith, is there any enforced or non-enforced personnel changes you'd be making?
Yeah, I think you need to see what players are back, because what you tend not want to do is to make wholesale changes, and I would go with the sentiment that what has proven us to be to win the number of games that we have in the last year, in 2018 to be the best year we've ever had in Irish rugby, doesn't mean because we got it wrong or didn't get to the tempo of a game that you make wholesale changes. And we've had this one before where either our attitude has been off or something is wrong, or maybe our sharpness wasn't quite right. You can get a lot of that right in a week. You don't have to do it entirely. I do think Henshaw comes under pressure because much and all as Joe Schmidt was defending him as you'd expect him to do after the weekend, it wasn't that he wasn't in the right place all the time. I thought England were really, really sharp in how they moved him about. But he hasn't played there in a while. And it was when the ball went in behind us, we looked slower. And that's a position we can't really be in. They looked like the faster players on the field. So when the ball was put into spots behind Henshaw or in the other side of the field away from him, it was trying to get to that point. They seemed to be running onto it faster than we were. And so whether that's his position of play or not, I don't know. But I would expect there to be some pressure there. But I don't know. I think you need to look at the game. If we play at the weekend and we play at that level, and we don't get a result, I think that is the more likely cause for change than it is for this week.
Yes, you allow everybody to make the recovery, to give them the chance to prove that was one-off as opposed to something.
Well, I think to be honest, from us as fans, and I know it's the graph for fans' agitation is quite crazy, but these guys deserve it. They've shown us the most fantastic year of all time. This is a new year. They've had a blip. They deserve it, and they deserve that from the fans to say that, okay, we want these guys to get back and play at the level they're supposed to. And if changes have to happen, they should be happening in the coming weeks, but I think they deserve another go.
Can I ask you about Rory Best's performance, because he's come in for some criticism as well. How close or otherwise is it to a situation where he's no longer first choice for Ireland?
I think it's a really hard call actually for Rory Best, and I'm a fan, and I think he has done very, very well. I do think he is much slower around the field than he has been. I don't think he is as effective as often. And what you have to weigh up with all of that is to what he brings to the team as a captain and has consistently done. Now, we would say with last weekend that there could be a criticism there as well. He deserves the opportunity as well. And we have to see, can we get the most out of him? And is he the guy to bring us to the World Cup? Well, he is if he's fit enough and isn't exposed on the field. I don't think he was exposed on the field. I just don't think he shone last weekend. There's a big difference.
Yeah. Okay, the other thing that I just wanted to get your take on was post-match, we saw a picture from CJ Sanders' brother-in-law that said he played 62 minutes with multiple fractures, a broken cheek and an eye socket. It did strike me that while that is heroic and clearly demonstrates, just how much of an athlete he is and how he will absolutely do whatever it takes to get out there, that maybe we should have, for his own benefit, taken him out, particularly by half-time when you're in the dressing room, you see the face swelling up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call, sir. I don't fully know what the story was with it, but I know for myself that if you feel you can play on and play through it, like, I don't know if he knows it was broken or not. I mean, how would you know, really, unless there's bits kind of floating around. But he felt he could play on. And, you have to hope that him and the medics would have looked at that, and if they had said, look, it's broken and it's going to cause damage, you're off. There's a different question from that as to whether he can perform or not.
Yeah, no, totally. That's why it always feels like you need to intervene with players, because you're making the point exactly that the player will always try and play on, even if his arm is hanging off. Well,
it depends. It actually, not always, as it turns out. That's the view, that they always will, and there's certain guys always will. And I know that there was times in my own life when I absolutely did, and there was times when I absolutely didn't. So if he could do the job, then that's fine. I know that's a very kind of callous way of looking at it, but that is the way that you look at it. And if he felt he could, and if the medic felt he wasn't too bad, well, then that's fine. So other than that, we're guessing.
Just one last thing for me, Keith. We were just listening to Alan Quinlan talk about Jerome Garces at the weekend and how he was the worst possible ref for a dogfight in Ireland being in there. As a captain, I wonder, is there anything that Rory Best could have done differently in terms of chatting to Jerome Garces? I only picked up a couple of utterances myself, and it seemed he was just typical Rory Best. But is there a different way you might approach a ref like that?
No, I think he is a difficult ref, and some of the French refs are in the manner in which they just kind of brush over certain elements, because I think it's partly to do with the leagues. All the refs from the different leagues ref in a slightly different way, right? And that becomes part of it. And you need to know how to deal with them at any particular time. They have a huge issue with French guys have a huge issue with respect, and you have to treat them really well with respect. So even when you're complaining, you have to try your damnedest not to show that you're whinging or complaining. It's a very difficult one. And even if you remember back to Roman Poit and his ongoing battle with Paul O'Connell that he seemed to have for 3 or 4 years, and he argued over everything. I don't know. He didn't seem to want to talk to anybody on Saturday, and that makes it very difficult.
Keith, great stuff this morning. Thanks a million for joining us.
Pleasure. Cheers, gents.
Here's O'Gara last night on England being sick of hearing about how good this Ireland side are. Himself and Alan Quinlan joined Joe out in Vodafone HQ. Have a look.
You're right. I think we're all experts after the event, but that is exactly what happened. But if you look at it, I suppose you ask why. And I think the Irish psyche is really suited to having that fear factor. But with the 2018, it's very hard to create that when you're kind of a steamroll and you're bashing everyone out of your way that's been presented over that year. So, we know James Ryan's CV as a professional rugby player. He doesn't know what losing looks like. But he got a big belt on Saturday. But before that, it was kind of, he's going to prepare, do what he does every week, and we get a performance and a result. But I think you got to put yourself in the shoes of the English players. So there comes a point in time when you say, I've had enough. And that was for us in Munster, was probably 2009, from Leinster just had enough. And that was kind of what seemed to me on Saturday. England had enough of hearing how great Ireland are. Ireland are going to win the World Cup. And these guys are serious players.
Yeah, they are. They are serious players, and that's the bit I think that got lost in translation. We were watching the warm-ups pre-game. Schmidt took an active part, was like the winger, kind of. He was outside Henshaw for the whole time, kind of talking to him about stuff. And Ireland kept dropping balls, kept throwing it behind people, kept knocking on. And then we looked down at England. It was like, they're like very fast and very strong, and that ball hasn't touched the deck at all. Our ball was kind of smudged in green. It's like, oh, what's going on here? This doesn't look good.
You should have tweeted that beforehand.
I should have, yeah, but
Reverse jinx it.
I should have.
So it's your fault.
Well, I think, Owen, you can't dig yourself out of this hole just yet. You've become a meme on the internet, have you? Is it the first time you've become a meme?
No, obviously not. I haven't become a meme. Everything I said was...
FIFA was the first meme, was it? Is it FIFA? Did we throw it out? We did throw it out.
I'm not sure which is more annoying, stupid little Messi kids or stupid little English rugby fans. Both annoying in equal measure, to be quite honest with you.
Meme number 3.
To be fair, it's all fair game. It's all fair game. I deserve what I'm getting. I've tried not to look into certain Reddit threads and
are you not enjoying them?
Certain
No
remix videos and things
There's
like that.
lots of remix videos.
There's a lot of remix videos.
There's a great video which was doing the rounds yesterday of here's exactly what Owen Farrell said so there's a huddle after the match, obviously, on the pitch. There was a huddle at half time.
Yeah, they didn't go straight in the England team.
What was that about?
Just clearly, it was Owen Farrell again leading the discussion and saying to his team, whatever, we don't let this slip or whatever it may be. I did find it interesting. It's like, is that their motivational bit? And then Eddie Jones gives them direction.
I don't know. I was kind of hoping, this is a good sign. They obviously hate the coaching staff so much they don't want to hear them.
That thought also crossed my mind at half time. But
then afterwards, they came out afterwards and was like, this Mitchell guy is really good. He makes life very easy for us.
Yeah,
it's great having him around. Now they have just beaten Ireland, the best team in the world, the superior rugby forces, you would say.
Like, has Eddie Jones just completely rope-a-doped us? Like, if we talk about that, in terms of the last couple of years, we talk about our obsession with the Rugby World Cup and how we desperately need to get past the quarter-final and how everything else is irrelevant. We forget the idea that the 2015 World Cup was one of the most damaging things in recent memory for English rugby. On home soil, they tank, out of the pool stages. They've only got their sights set on one thing, and that is this year's World Cup as well. It is the year 2019. So maybe the last 2 years were all just a bit of a sideshow. Eddie Jones starts off with a slam, lets the next year slip a little bit, and then has a disastrous 2018.
I would have,
started 2018.
I could have bought your conspiracy theory. I'm a big buyer of conspiracy theory generally. But Owen Slot today, was just reading this earlier on. 6 months ago, the England coaching unit was fractured. It had 2 big vacancies: no defence coach and no attack coach. Maybe it didn't help that Eddie Jones, the head coach, had earned a reputation as being particularly hard to work with. And then he ends up picking John Mitchell, and they're like, this is never going to work. And then all of a sudden, one game in. A brilliant November series.
That's what I mean. Start of 2018 was bad, but they had a very, very good November as well. So maybe they're just timing their run perfectly.
Yeah. Farrell.
Get used to being superior.
That's what he's saying.
Get used to being superior. I've tried not to click on that. Somebody did send it to me on Twitter. You kind of know when you're being trolled and you know what to not click on.
You've got to click on the troll.
And that was one of those things. So fair play to whoever did that. It must be said. But, as we were saying earlier on, sometimes when an inferior nation comes to visit a superior nation, they just up their game a little bit.
Alan Quinlan was also at Vodafone HQ yesterday for Monday Night Rugby. One thing's for sure, he is not happy with Jerome Garces. Have a look.
This is the biggest moment in the game, I think. It's game over for Ireland, whatever chance we have. Robbie Henshaw runs up from the box kick from Murray. He taps it back infield. It hits Henry Slade's hand. It's a knock-on. Jerome Garces puts out his right hand. Advantage Ireland. Rory Best tackle. Pass to James Ryan tackle. Pass to Gary Ringrose knock-on for the scrum. He never once said advantage over.
Or if he did, his mic was out at that exact moment.
There was nothing wrong with his mic when CJ Stander was trying to pick the ball up from Ben Youngs.
No, I didn't hear him say it either.
No, he didn't say it, and he didn't indicate it was over. So it should have been a scrum back to Ireland. Yeah. Did we still deserve to win the game? No, I think the Vunipola one before half-time was potentially...
okay. But on balance, the referee's not the reason Ireland
not at all.
But he was the worst referee possible for us in a dogfight because he doesn't handle... competitiveness and guys going in off their feet and a real aggressive approach. I thought you needed a stronger referee for
He
that.
lets too much go for you.
Yeah, and he misses too much stuff.
Do you agree
For
with that?
both sides. I thought Vunipola's try was a try in the first half for England, and I said it in commentary. If England lose this game, Eddie Jones is not going to be happy with that. In slow motion, it looks like a double movement. In real time, it's a try.
Yeah. It's definitely worth not losing sight of this kind of stuff, because obviously there's the knee-jerk. England pummeled the crap out of us. And if a few bits of pieces happen in a game, rugby's weird in that you can be under the cosh, and if you don't get a penalty to relieve it, then it's a disaster. But if you do get a penalty, then suddenly they're thinking, oh, that's 10 minutes of our lives wasted. But we didn't take advantage when they had a man in the bin. Could that have been a red card? Could they have gone?
Well, we just kicked a touch when they had the man in the bin. So we had used that extra man to gain that territory. So that was the line out that led to the try. They just gone back to 15 when we had taken the line out.
Okay, so we score off that line out.
Yeah, so I would say that we did utilise the extra man. And I actually think, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think Rory best chose to go for the corner because we had the extra man, not realising that there was only seconds left on the bin. Or maybe he would have done it anyway. I'm not sure.
It felt like they knew that England looked punch drunk for about 3 or 4 phases of play. We just moved through them for the one and only time of the game, and we capitalised on that really well. So that's all the nous of the team's experience and the year of winning that they've had. That's that. Okay, actually, hang on a second. We can stand a bit of blood here, and they go for it. And I thought that was there were definitely parts that they're looking back in the video going, that was a good decision, that was a good decision, that was a good decision. Here's the 12 bad decisions that you all made collectively.
Do you think Joe Schmidt knew we were going to be in a dogfight on Saturday?
I think the point about the tanks is absolutely true.
Exactly. Of course he knew. And Alan Quinlan said there, Ger and Eoin says was the worst possible referee for Ireland in a dogfight. Now, do you think that Joe Schmidt, if Alan Quinlan knows that information, do you think Joe Schmidt knows that information? Of course he does. So do we have to take some sort of blame ourselves for not reacting to Ger and Eoin says' style of refereeing ourselves?
Yeah.
We absolutely do. So I think it's a very one-dimensional view to just blame it on the referee and just stop the discussion there. If you can blame something on the referee and blame our attitude around the referee and how it's the worst possible thing for us in a dogfight, then we need to take a look at ourselves as well in terms of how we approach a Ger and Eoin says ref rugby match.
The point that everybody needs to ask after this is how well prepared were the team to change their approach in the middle of what they're doing. Plan A is not working. In the middle of this phase of play, what is my plans B, C, D and E? And is our team selection correct to be able to change things up? When we get the injuries that we're going to get in a match, are we ready to do something different? And I didn't feel that way. It felt like this stuff, it felt like when Andy Dunn was talking in the build-up to this, he was talking about how Ireland's style of play is to have 100 more rucks than everybody else and to control games that way. And I think that the stats are still fairly similar. Alan Quinlan brought them out last night. I think it was 160 to 80. We lost one. They won all of theirs. And if that is the style of play that everything is predicated upon and then it doesn't work, what do you do? What is the answer? Where's our offloading game? Where's our... Okay, so going to the ruck and it being slow, we're going to have 160 slow rucks. What do we do? And I don't know what the answer is, but it didn't appear as if the players were going to something different. And maybe they shouldn't go to something different because they've just come off a year of success. Right, let's hear some more from Peter O'Mahony. Here he is talking about the hurt the Irish side felt after defeat last weekend.
100% we're hurting. The Aviva is obviously a place we haven't lost in a while. You never like losing, no matter whether you're playing for Ireland or your club. But particularly the Aviva is somewhere we made a fortress, and certainly that hurts. But the beauty of our job is, luckily, bar being the last game of a campaign, you can get back out if you're given a shot and work hard during the week, train hard and have an opportunity to put that right. So look, I'm certainly not going to sit here and say it didn't hurt. It certainly hurts, but we can't be hanging around feeling sorry for ourselves. We've got to take our review on the chin and dust ourselves off and get back stuck into the week, because there's a lot of rugby to be played between now and the end of the campaign.
Was the video review session this morning brutal?
It's always honest. It's been that way for a long time now, and guys know what the story is. And look, we hold ourselves personally and as a squad more accountable than anyone else will. So, the lads are hurting more than anyone.
Yeah. So Keith Wood's basically saying, pretty much, let them make amends.
Let them make amends. Get out there. Just do your same thing again, except get the win this time. The thing is, like, the injuries are obviously going to force Ireland into picking a fairly new look team by the sounds of things. There's going to be at least 3 or 4 changes, maybe 1 or 2 tactical on top of that as well. So it will be a fairly new look team. Like, the way he's talking there about what England and the way they approached it, I know there was a texture disagreeing with your view, that it was very reminiscent of how Joe Schmidt does approach teams. Just do everything right. Don't try anything that's too crazy, but just do everything right and do it extremely right. And there's a very good chance you'll win the game. Like that definitely has the hallmarks, from what Keith Wood is saying there of Eddie Jones, of a Joe Schmidt team.
Yeah, and when you're doing it with lads who are bigger than the opposition,
it helps.
Happy days.
It helps. When you've got Tuilagi and Billy Vunipola, you can bully pretty much any team in the world. You really can. We've also got to remember as well that it's not their performance isn't out of the blue for sure. I think our underperformance is a shock, but the English performance was not out of the blue. Like, you look at them in November, like the week before we played the All Blacks, they probably should have beaten them.
They definitely should have beaten them. Now they should have got beaten themselves.
Did they soften the All Blacks up for us?
Yeah, that was it. That's how it worked. So actually, we need to completely let the air out of the balloon. Is that the one benefit to this? Is that the air is well and truly out of the balloon?
Depends how the next few weeks go. Like,
hype is gone.
Imagine if we won the championship from here, it would be the exact opposite. The balloon would be bigger than ever. In the face of adversity, world champions in weight Ireland managed to win the Six Nations.
Somehow England blow it from here?
That would be class. That would just be class for our own enjoyment.